Alright, so make a start. So this lecture will provide some motivation for the subject and describe the methodology for building websites that we will use in this subject. Certainly one motivation for doing this subject is to get a job, and there are jobs out there looking for web development skills or front-end development skills, and these positions are often called a web developer or front-end developer. Of course, another motivation for doing this subject might simply to be to just to help a friend, or to build a website for someone's business, or to set up a business of your own. And one other benefit of this subject is mobile development. So we will cover aspects of mobile development, in particular how to develop mobile websites as well as the normal desktop websites. Okay, to the user, the interface is a system, so that is obviously true. So the user doesn't see what lies beneath, but sees the interface. Hence, it does pay to design a beautiful and functional interface, and we will look at design guidelines to achieve this. The importance of good web interface design. So usability in our case, we're talking about websites, is extremely important. Of course, you can think about usability for mobile apps, for different types of software, but we're talking about usability for websites in particular. And this is extremely important. And indeed, with today's technologies and tools, there shouldn't be much excuse, if you like, for not creating a website that is usable and effective. And certainly, after this subject, it shouldn't be because of reason number 4 that we don't have an effective and usable website. I'm going to show you 2 extreme examples of websites, and these are atypical websites, and but both of which have achieved enormous success, and certainly unconventional by typical web design standards. So here's the first one. This is the $1 million homepage website, and this was actually designed by a university student who needed to raise funds for his university studies. And there are 1 million pixels on this website, and he was selling $1 per pixel. And so, for instance, you could buy a 20 by 100 pixel space, or 2,000 pixels, and pay $2,000 for it, and you can put your advertisement on that in that web space. Well, the student succeeded in raising $1 million. He managed to sell 1 million pixels, and I'm not sure whether he continued his university studies after that, but it did work. So it looks rather messy and disorganized, but there was so much of attention that people found it worthwhile to just put an ad on his website. So it worked. It was atypical. But a lesson here is that the design of the website would depend on its purpose, right? So, and the design of this website was aligned with its purpose, and it worked. Here's another example of a website which you probably know a lot about, and which is Google, and you probably use it maybe even several times a day. So the website is simple and functional, no more complex than what is needed, but no simpler than what is needed. So an interesting lesson from this website is that the thing that we want to typically do through this website, it can be easily done, right? Which is just to search using keywords, and so that search feature is upfront. There have been other search engines as well, and many of these search engines have lots of advertisements right on the homepage itself, with the search form kind of in a corner somewhere. And so that made it quite hard to use the feature, and you got to find the search box in the midst of all the ads. But Google has a clean and if you like, extremely user-friendly interface for that. And you don't see any ads until you start looking at the search results. So a good lesson to learn from this website is that you got to make it really easy for someone who wants to do something through the website. You got to make it easy for them. Okay, so the main goals of this subject is to present an approach to building websites and to learn the underlying web standards and protocols. And we want to learn the web programming languages and programming techniques as well. So suppose you want to build a website, how do you start? Right, so you could use a tool and you can whip up a website, but in this subject, what we are interested in doing is to understand the underlying programming languages, the underlying techniques and the protocols used in the web, as well as get an idea of the different web standards involved, the technical standards. So we are taking a software engineering methodology, so analysis, design, implementation, and testing. And we'll also look at a bunch of technologies used in the web like HTML, JavaScript, and so on. So we'll come back to these technologies soon. So I'll show you a picture of client requirements and how they can be incorporated into software. And this is done by going through a typical software development process. Right? So you start off with the problem definition or the user's requirements analysis. And then you go on to try and understand the types of users that you have, and as well as the types of tasks that you want to do through the website. And then you try and come up with a web structure as well as web page design that supports the user. And then you try and write that design down in some notation. And then after that, there are some tools that you might use to analyze complex websites, something called the flow of interaction net, but we will come to that later. And as we design the look and feel of the website, we might make use of some design guidelines. And these same design guidelines can be used to evaluate the usability of a website, if you like to test the usability of a website. So we'll cover these things in time to come. Okay, so there are millions of websites, in fact billions of websites out there, and this slide points out the importance of good design, right? So especially in a case where you have multiple businesses providing similar type of service, it is a competitive advantage for a business to have a user-friendly design. A website where the user could just go and get things done with little hassle and frustration. Right? So there are different aspects of web design. There's the artistic aspect, and there's also the engineering aspect. So, but we'll take a more engineering approach, a software engineering approach. So this is not a graphics design subject, so we will focus less on the graphics and the design, but we still have some design guidelines, and then look at the technologies involved. Right? So in a nutshell, what we are aiming for is a systematic approach to this whole process of creating and designing and creating websites. We'll look at lots of examples and case studies as we go as well. And the idea is not to be ad hoc in the approach, but to be structured and methodological, if you like. And we'll cover lots of examples throughout this subject. In fact, in the coming face-to-face lecture, we'll look at examples as well. Okay, that's it for this introduction in terms of motivations and methodology. We'll certainly come back and review this methodology as we go in later parts of the subject and observe how it can be used, how it can be applied in practice. Okay, thank you.